it's Summer, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome to the chaos. I do all things music related on this channel, from putting up covers and show reels to show people what I'm like as a performing artist, to production, songwriting, and audio engineering styly content. And today's video is more to that side of things, although I'm not actually going to be doing any sort of production stuff in the video. It's the start of a new year, and at the start of last year, I decided that one of my main focuses going forward in terms of my career as a musician was that I wanted to be able to take on more studio-based work. I wanted to be able to do mixing and production for other people, songwriting for other people. I want to be able to do work as a session singer, and obviously really invest a lot of time and effort and money into my socials as more of a music producer, songwriter, styly person. And so I'd reached the stage where I really needed to upgrade this space that I work in. This is my little home studio space, and it really was just like an old bedroom with a few bits of gear in it at the start of last year. So I spent a lot of time focusing on making this space a better space for recording, a better space for mixing and all of that stuff. And slowly I have been upgrading. There's one thing that I haven't quite finished yet in terms of my studio setup, which you will notice in pictures that I show. You'll notice one of the biggest things missing from the technical side of my studio setup still is a set of studio monitors. As I am in the process of getting them at the moment. I haven't made the decision yet because I take forever to make decisions whenever I'm buying gear. So yeah, that's the only thing that's really missing at the moment. This studio space is a completely new environment to where it was this time last year. So today's video is basically just going to be me going through all the various different things that I have done to this room to make it into my little studio. All of the chaos that happened in the process of making it. So this is how things started out. Here's just a few pictures of when I basically dismantled a load of stuff in this room. Like, I dismantled the old bits of furniture that I was planning to use for various things. And basically that meant that everything that had been stored in various cupboards and stuff had to be taken out and was just scattered all over the floor. It was chaos in here for a bit. And I did have to actually do a little bit of painting as well, because I had painted this entire room previously to just make it look more interesting than the boring white background I had before. But there was one bit that was behind a wardrobe that was in this room that was attached to the wall, and the wall behind that wardrobe obviously hadn't been painted, so I had to paint the wall behind the wardrobe. So the boring bit first, one of the things that you probably don't actually think about so much in terms of what a home studio space involves, but possibly one of the most important things, storage. I do not cope well with cupboards and drawers, and I need efficient, quick ways of tidying this space, because it needs obviously to remain pretty tidy, because once it starts to get a little bit messy in here, it turns into chaos trying to do anything, because you've got cables and stuff. The setup has to be able to change around quite a bit, so I need to be able to keep the floor relatively tidy. So I need to come up with solutions for how to keep this space tidy in a way that works for me. And the way that works best for me is lots and lots of shelves. So I made a bunch of shelves, and that entire section next to where the wardrobe was, and the wardrobe has now been turned into a vocal booth, we'll come back to that in a sec, but that entire section now just has loads of shelving units in it. I also got a new guitar rack instead of just individual stands, which has made it so much easier to keep this room organised, because I don't have to move guitars on individual stands around the room like I used to. Over on the other side of the vocal booth, there's a little box. It's basically just 3 pieces of wood screwed into the wardrobe, and that acts as a dumping ground for all of my stands and stuff. When I pack down, I literally can just chuck them back in there. It's so easy. It makes me actually pack down more often because it's so much quicker to do now. Anywho, so that's part of the boring bit, but a more exciting bit of the actual DIY stuff that I did in this room is the panels. I've talked about them a little bit in a previous video, but I made my own acoustic panels. I wanted to make my own because it was actually going to work out cheaper to get actually good acoustic treatment for this room. Like, I could have just gotten a bunch of the foam ones, but in order to put enough of those foam ones up in here, I would have had to have bought a lot of them. Whereas I was able to make nice, big, perfect panels. I'm probably going to move all of them further over that way once I set up my speakers, because then I'll be able to actually do the mirror thing and figure out where best in the room to place them. But the biggest thing that was really important to me was that big acoustic panel that I made, because I wanted to be able to shrink down this space quite easily. I wasn't going to be able to set up my desk perfectly in the middle of the room without then making it difficult to record videos. If I was going to set it up over in this corner, then it was going to be really lopsided in terms of where in the room it is for the acoustics. So the solution I thought would be better for this space would be to have the movable acoustic panel, the nice big movable acoustic panel that I can use to shrink down the space to make it so that each of the speakers are about the same distance away from panels, that would be better than just trying to place it in the middle somewhere and putting up with the fact that I really wouldn't have been able to put panels on the surfaces to stop the reflections as easily. I covered briefly how I made these a little bit in a previous video that I put up at the end of last year, the 5 things I learned this year video, and I shared in the description there a video that I used as a tutorial. I'll pop that in the description or the comments or something again on this video in case you want to have a look at the actual method I used. These were really easy to hang. My bass trap in the corner was slightly less easy to hang. One thing I'm not sure what to do about going forward is that obviously to make a really good mixing environment, I would want some sort of acoustic treatment on the ceiling, but I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to go about putting any sort of panel up there. So I might go with the foam ones for that, just because it's going to be so much easier to just stick foam ones to the ceiling. Because I'm really paranoid that anything I would try and do to get it to hang from the ceiling, it would end up falling down. Like, I feel like I'll need to do a lot more DIY learning before I attempt that. Even more exciting than the panels, obviously, was the little vocal booth I made. This is the thing I'm probably proudest of in the room in terms of the build aspect of it. And I've got lots of footage of me making this vocal booth to show you guys just how much work went into it. So this is an old wardrobe. There was a double wardrobe in here. One side was full wardrobe, one side had drawers underneath. All of the parts, though, that came out of that wardrobe have either gone back into making the booth, or the bits that I didn't need for that were what I used to make my shelves. I've also used them, I used a bit to put an extra shelf in a unit I've got down here that my computer now sits on. So all of that wardrobe pretty much has been recycled. There are still some little bits hanging about somewhere, so I've still got little bits of wood for any other little additions I want to make in this room. So I just took one apart, rebuilt it in front of the other one. And again, I used the bits of shelves and drawers and stuff that I didn't need for that actual frame, and I cut some of that up to make just like small squares of wood about this big, and I've just used those to bolt the 2 bits of the wardrobe together. And then I covered that in foam that I got out of various bits of old cushions and old mattress toppers and stuff. But, you know, it works. It works just fine. And I had it all lying around, so I didn't have to buy anything for that. And then there's also even more of it just stuffed in as I put the fabric on, because then all of that obviously is covered in fabric. And that was one of the trickiest bits, was trying to get the fabric up and round and trying to figure out, because I knew I had enough fabric, but I had fabric in 2 colours, because I couldn't get enough fabric in just one colour. But there was enough of the blue canvas to pair with the gold. But then it was sort of, there's enough, but it's going to be in awkward amounts. So it was quite awkward doing like the maths of trying to figure out how long a piece and where to put the different pieces and where to have it change to the gold. And I think I have actually used some of that fabric as well, because there wasn't quite enough of the canvas in that colour. So there's a little bit of the velvet in there too. It's a little bit patchworky if you look at it in detail. Like if you look at it from a distance, it looks all nice and clean and like there's a design to it. But if you look at it up close, you see there's little patches of fabric just stapled in. So just don't look at it too closely when you're inside it. But yeah, that was quite hard work. It was a lot of exercise doing that. Oh God, getting the doors back on was... I did have help with that. But yeah, it really works quite well as a little vocal booth, because basically, you know, a vocal booth is essentially just a wooden frame, some sort of insulation covered in fabric. That is what a vocal booth is. The only downside to it at the moment is that it is quite a small space in there. I don't currently have a suitable unit for all the things I have to have in there, because I'm usually recording my own vocals. I keep my mic preamp in there, and currently my mic preamp is having to sit atop a old keyboard stand, and then I have to have a music stand in there to have like lyrics on, and also to have my iPad in there because I use that to then control. Otherwise I'd have to come out of the booth each time to hit record again. So it's quite cramped in there with all that. But it's cool, isn't it? Isn't my little vocal booth cool? The other sort of furniture things that have changed in here, the desk, which I got for free off Facebook Marketplace, and it's perfect because I wanted something with a nice big wheelie out thing. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. A pull-out under thingy. It was for putting the keyboard on. This keyboard currently doesn't fit on it, but at some point I will upgrade my MIDI controller. That's not like remotely a priority at the moment. That can wait. And then the other big thing, my chair. And my chair I got from a charity shop. I found him in a charity shop. And it's got a little footstool, so there's a little footstool under the desk as well, so I can sit really comfortably. It's just big enough for me to curl up in it comfortably, and It reclines, although whenever I'm in this position it does feel a little bit like I'm going to tip over. I'm sure I won't because it's got a really secure base. The one thing I want to do to it maybe is put wheels on the base, because currently trying to move this chair around the room is a nightmare because it's quite heavy. Footstool actually really works quite well because it's perfect for sitting on for me to do guitar. The other improvements to the studio obviously have been the fact that I was doing everything on my MacBook Pro. And I didn't have like a really old MacBook Pro. I think it's a 2019 model, and I got it at the end of 2019. It still works fine, but the main problem with it is that I got like the lowest spec model because that was what I could afford at the time. And so it's got 8 gigs of RAM and only 256 gigs of SSD. It could cope with Logic, it can cope with doing Final Cut, but the thing it couldn't cope with was once I started trying to use plugins outside of Logic. A lot of people just said I should get a new MacBook with the right amount of RAM and SSD because I decided to go with a Mac Studio is what I've gotten. I wanted a studio computer and I wanted to be able to keep my MacBook. There's nothing wrong with my MacBook. Adding to my setup with another computer rather than upgrading so I'm still just doing everything on one laptop that then is traveling around with me. So now my studio computer is also the one that I am taking on retreats and stuff. It could get stolen, it could get damaged, and then I'm without a studio computer as well as without my laptop. That just didn't seem like the most sensible option to me. So yeah, that was the biggest piece of tech upgrade, obviously. And then, you know, I've got my screen. I got my screen in the sale. And a friend actually sold me his old keyboard because he had a newer keyboard. He didn't need this one anymore, so he sold me that. Secondhand mouse. That is the setup. We're still on just the headphones. Like I said before, I haven't gotten my studio monitors yet, so I'm still on just my my Audio-Technica headphones. That is the only thing left in terms of this setup, really, that needs to be added is studio monitors, which I will be getting, and I had planned to try and get in here before the end of the year and before I did this video. Can't decide if I should go with one of the Yamaha HS models, like the HS8 or maybe the HS7. They might be suitable enough for my setup, and obviously they're a bit more budget friendly, because that's like 500 odd quid. Or the other main model I'm looking at is the Adam Audio, the A7V, I think they are, aren't they? I'm looking at possibly going with them. What I like about both of those models is that this room is not perfect acoustically, but that as I make improvements to it, it may become more like an actual monitor room in a studio would be like. It'll get closer to that as I add, you know, more acoustic treatment and all that stuff. But for now, it's not. And specifically, I probably won't be able to put the speakers quite far enough away from walls like they're supposed to. And both of those models offer options for being able to adjust those room settings. Opinions would be welcome on this. Interface is obviously already the same. The other pieces of gear that have gone into this room, and you guys will have seen me do videos on these pieces of gear. Obviously, I got 3 new microphones, 2 sets of these lovely SE 4400s that I love. I love them. They have been a godsend. And I also got the SE... It's right there, so at least I can check this. V7. I was going to say V8. I was like, that doesn't feel right. And I have added a mic preamp. I did a video all about that and comparing it to the mic preamps in my Scarlett. And then the other big thing is that I have upgraded what I have in terms of plugins. In the Black Friday sales, I got Melodyne. Woo! And I also opted to go with UJam's package to get their plugins because I liked all of their instrument plugins. I found them very handy. And I got a few other things that were being given away free and stuff. The Universal Audio LA2A compressor that they were giving away for free. I also got, you know, all of the free Valhallas and stuff like that you can get. And I got all of the free stuff that you can get through Native Instruments. So I've got all of that installed now. And then the other thing I'm looking at adding plugins wise in the new year is that I'm probably gonna at the very least try out the 30-day free trial of the subscription to Slate Digital's All Access Pass. That is what was used in the studio that I used to go to loads, and so I know a bit about all those plugins. Other improvements I'm looking at making relatively soonish. I mentioned the MIDI controller, that probably won't be anytime soon though, but the biggest thing is I need a couple of longer cables because I need to be able to connect up the preamp in the vocal booth pretty much all the time. I hate having to disconnect it all the time, so obviously I need some sort of unit in there that it can go in, and then I also need cables long enough that I can have it connected up, because at the moment it's not safe to have it connected up even if I had something safe to put it in the booth, because the cable I've got isn't long enough to go around the room, so it goes across. Cabling, the most fun part of a home studio. But it is at the point now where it's basically It's basically my studio space. It literally just needs monitors really to be my studio space properly now. And I can really get to working on all sorts of projects. This setup looks so cool, doesn't it? Doesn't it look so good on video? It's the chair. It's mostly the chair. The chair is carrying the setup here, innit? Anyway, that is the new setup. That is the video. I just wanted to show you guys the work I had done in this room and talk you through the improvements I've made and why I made certain decisions over others. But at the end of the day, how you set up your studio has to work for you. So there are things I have done in this room that maybe other people wouldn't do in their own space. But you know, that's what works for me. What works for you would be something completely different. I hope that if you are working on your own space this year, that this inspires you to put together a little space that really works well for you and your projects. If you enjoyed this video, then you might want to consider hitting that subscribe button, because I put out content like this on a regular basis, and then you can see the other adaptations that happen in the studio. But I know that subscribing is a big commitment, so if you want to check out some other content before, I wouldn't want you to commit to something that you're not certain you're ready for. And if you would like to check out my social media, that's all linked in my description. I have a Buy Me a Coffee account, and I put up outtakes videos from all of my YouTube videos and other behind the scenes style content on there on a regular basis. So if you would like to check that out, that is in the description as well. Okay, that is all, guys, and I shall see you guys next week with another fun video.
Today, let's take another